What's up, guys? It's Dan from Coin Bureau Trading. Today, we're going to take a look at the CME gaps that could cause the crypto market to pull back in the next couple of days before continuation higher as a result of the US government shutdown ending. If this is the kind of content that you enjoy, then be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ping that notification bell. Before we get started, do keep in mind that nothing in this video is financial advice. It's just my personal analysis of the crypto market. Your analysis could be different, and if it is, that's awesome, because the more difference of opinion that we have, the better traders and the better investors we're all going to become. So first things first, guys, of course, as a result of this rally over the weekend, we have some CME gaps forming here, starting with Bitcoin. The CME gap is somewhere around 104,100. I think 104,200 if you want to be super exact. Or I think it's 104,160. Doesn't matter. Point being is that it needs to fall right now. Bitcoin is trading at around 106,000. So what to expect in the next couple of days, in my opinion, is something like this. We're looking at Bitcoin on the 4-hour chart. I do think that Bitcoin could head a little bit higher here in the next few hours, just as a result of U.S. markets opening. I imagine there's going to be a bit of a rally in U.S. markets as a result of the kind of progress towards the government shutdown ending. And this would also take Bitcoin up to the Bollinger Band moving average on the daily, which is somewhere around, if we can actually zoom out to the daily here, you can see somewhere around 108,000. So for Bitcoin to rally to 108,000, then get rejected, then in the next couple of days, close that CME gap down around 104,000, whatever it is, 200, 100, and then a continuation higher into later this week when the U.S. government shutdown officially ends. We'll get to that in just a second. First, I do need to show you guys also the CME gap on Ethereum, which is somewhere around 3,483, if we want to be super exact there. So Ethereum is also probably going to get a pullback here in the next couple of days before continuing higher. What that looks like, I've also drawn it out here on the 4-hour chart. Same idea. Ethereum would probably rally up to the daily Bollinger Band moving average, somewhere around 3,750. That could happen first. Again, it's no guarantee, but again, when the U.S. markets open in response to the U.S. government shutdown ending, that news came over the weekend, so U.S. markets will probably rally, and at least at the open, and then we'll have Ethereum probably pulling back down to basically retest that CME gap, which would probably be the Bollinger Band moving average on the 4-hour. At that stage, that's probably what it's going to be. Then we get a continuation higher until later this week, and again, that does have to do with the U.S. government shutdown ending. At the time of shooting this video, basically what happened is that the Senate has basically agreed to pass you could say like a stopgap funding bill that basically they agree to keep the U.S. government open until January 30th of 2026. But this bill, of course, needs to go back to the House. Then the House needs to pass it, and then Trump needs to sign it. And this is why, if you look at these prediction markets like Polymarket, they're expecting the shutdown to end on the 14th, which might come as a little bit of a surprise. But the reason is pretty simple. Like, if the House doesn't vote on this bill today, like if they're not able to pass it by the end of today, then it could stretch on into Wednesday, because tomorrow is a federal holiday in the U.S., if I'm not mistaken. So, like, if you just consider the time that the House has to still vote on it, and then Trump has to sign it before the U.S. government shutdown can be considered over, that does take us into sometime around midweek. So again, this is consistent with this forecast here for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and of course for the broader crypto market, that we would get a little bit more upside here in the short term, like in the next day or so, and then maybe Tuesday, Wednesday get a little bit of a pullback, but then going into Thursday, Friday, we get a continuation higher when the U.S. government shutdown is officially ended. If you guys are trading crypto or are looking to trade crypto, then do check out the links in the description. Just click on that more button and check out especially this first link here, BitGet up to 50,000 USDT deposit bonus. Click on that link. It'll take you to a page that looks like this. As you guys can see, the Coin Bureau does have a partnership with BitGet, but on a personal note, I do think that BitGet is an awesome exchange. It's one that I've used personally. It's one that I would recommend. That does not mean that you should be keeping your crypto on BitGet. You should always keep your crypto in your personal wallet and only be, having your crypto on exchanges that you're actively trading. And of course, you do need to do quite a bit of trading to get up to this, full 50,000 bonus, but just create an account that's completely free. Give it a shot. They have spot trading, futures, tokenized stocks. They have on-chain trading, everything you could possibly need. So give it a shot, and who knows, maybe you'll make it up to that 50,000 USDT bonus. So to wrap things up, guys, I really want to underscore the reason why, not just from a macro perspective where the U.S. government shutdown ending would be bullish because it would cause the U.S. dollar to fall, but it would also be bullish in terms of all the catalysts that it would basically cause. So the first is that we're waiting on the SEC to approve a whole bunch of altcoin ETFs. This would probably happen almost immediately after the U.S. government shutdown ends. So it's possible that by the end of this week, we would get a whole bunch of spot altcoin ETFs launching in the U.S. But of course, altcoin ETFs launching does not guarantee inflows, as we saw with Ethereum. When when the Ethereum ETFs launched, there wasn't much inflows at the beginning. You need catalysts to basically bring attention to those altcoins, and we actually have a perfect catalyst for that, which also relates to the SEC, which is this innovation exemption, which would basically temporarily legalize everything on chain in the US. So whether it's DeFi or tokenized RWAs or predictions markets, right? Anything that is done on chain in crypto would be temporarily legal in the US. And of course, all this stuff that's done on chain, that's done on altcoin chains like Ethereum, Solana, Base, and all these other layer 2s and layer 1s, right? So this innovation exemption would primarily benefit, obviously, altcoins, because that's where most of the on-chain activity is happening, is on these altcoin chains. So you'd have a lot of experimentation, like whether it's GameFi, SocialFi, a whole bunch of stuff. You would see an explosion basically on like these crazy new announcements, integrations. You'd probably see like Web2 companies like Instagram announcing that they're integrating NFTs and crypto features. And I almost guarantee that you would see X, like Twitter. You would see them probably also integrating like crypto payments. Again, all this on-chain stuff, it would come very quickly, and it would bring a lot of attention to altcoins once this innovation exemption is announced, of course. And the other thing as well is the Clarity Act, which is basically like this crypto market structure bill. I guess you could say objectively, quote unquote speaking, this crypto market structure bill is probably the most important thing or most significant, simply because you guys might remember that when the Genius Act passed in July, like this Genius Act related to stablecoins, that caused Ethereum to spike by like 50% in the month of July. It caused a lot of altcoins to rally, but of course it was mainly on these layer 1s that are supportive of all these stablecoins. When we see a broad crypto market structure bill being passed, then that would basically probably result in a huge altcoin rally. And just in case you guys are confused, this SEC innovation exemption and this bill, they are technically two separate things. The bill would basically say like, hey, for example, starting in 2027, then all these cryptos have to abide by these rules. But the innovation exemption from the SEC is basically like, until the Clarity Act comes into force, you can basically do whatever the hell you want. So it's kind of like the example I've used before is like, to imagine, I don't know, you have like some new rule is going to come up in your city that you're not allowed to park in a certain spot or a certain area. You're not allowed to park your car there. But then the police says, well, until that law comes into force, you can park wherever you want, however you want, do whatever the hell you want. That's basically what the SEC is doing here. And again, like the Clarity Act would be bullish, just as it would bring in probably more institutional capital, but it wouldn't actually go into force until sometime in 2027. This is what people don't understand, even about the Genius Act. That's also not going to come into force for a while. It makes for a very nice catalyst in the short term, but it doesn't create any restrictions around the crypto market today, just in the future, long after the bull market is likely to be over. The last thing I want to mention, guys, that I find very interesting is that earlier this month, of course, everyone was feeling really bearish, including me, to be completely honest. But the thing that, had me like second guessing my bearishness was seeing all these like top crypto projects and crypto companies basically doing all these things or announcing all of these kind of like launches in like the second half of November. And I'm thinking like, what do they know, right? Like, for example, Monad is a great example here. Monad is like one of the most highly anticipated like layer 1s. They've raised like an enormous amount of money from these VCs, and it's a very, very highly anticipated mainnet launch that a lot of people have been waiting for a long time. And then you hear Monad, like literally when everything is crashing, they announce, hey, we're going to drop our token on November 24th. And like, to the untrained eye, are like, what are you doing? Like, are you crazy? Like, are you out of your mind? If you guys know that meme. Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? And of course, it's almost like a potential signal there, like from these larger players, whether it's these large crypto projects or exchanges, that they probably knew in advance. And it makes sense if you think about it, that these big players in crypto do have connections to the Trump administration. They probably know, they have an idea of what's going on behind the scenes. And not only that, guys, but you forget that a lot of these big crypto companies, they are directly in contact with all of these politicians that are voting on these bills, like on this like government shutdown. They are actively lobbying. I think they were like, the crypto lobby was like the largest, most influential lobby like leading up to last year's election. So they do actually have an ear when it comes to what's going on in the government. So it's possible that since earlier this month, they kind of knew like, hey, we have a sense that this shutdown is probably going to end around this time. So all these crypto projects said, okay, well, in that case, we're going to basically set our TG dates, all our big announcements and everything. We're going to prepare for there to be a huge inflow of attention and capital into the crypto market in the second half of November. November once the US government shutdown is over. You could say that's speculation on my part, but again, it just is really interesting when there's blood in the streets and everyone is panicking, and then you see large players like large crypto companies like Coinbase or large crypto projects like Monad, and they're just completely chilling and just like preparing and rolling out these things where it's like, why are you doing that when no one is paying attention, everyone is bearish? Logically, the only reason is because they anticipate, again, an inflow of capital and attention. So just something to keep in the back of your mind there, if you're still feeling doubtful, I guess, about this kind of bounce that we're seeing here. Anyways, guys, if you did make it this far and you did find that information helpful, then be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, ping that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one.